Pro boxing fans, we are here in Riyadh. It is fight week. Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol. With me, none other than my good friend Teddy Atlas. Teddy, first of all, how are you? How was the flight in? How was the stay?
The flight in, as always, good. I mean, long, very tired yesterday, but nothing to complain about. We're blessed that we can be asked to come to such day, and my son would come with me. So, I'm always understanding of the privilege of it and, the appreciation for that privilege. But, I'm glad we're talking today instead of yesterday, because yesterday I barely know what I'm saying when I know what I'm saying. Yesterday I would have even less known what the hell I was saying because it would have been more garbled than normal because of the flight and the lack of sleep. But no, everything's good. Like I said, I get to travel with my son. My family is good back home. Thanks for asking. I know your family as well, which is the most important thing, that our families are well and people that we care about are good. So, and it's a beautiful weather here. I mean, look at this. How blessed are we that we're outdoors. I mean, back home in New York, it's you guys do Celsius, not Fahrenheit, but Fahrenheit it's like 20 degrees. So it's not. We wouldn't be sitting outside.
I do before we talk about the fight. I do want to talk about the podcast and the watch-alongs that you're doing on your channel. First of all, just to let people know that, listen, when there is fights, pop onto Teddy's channel, because you are doing commentary and the watch-along. Just give them more information, Teddy, on that.
No, I mean, it's The Fight with Teddy Atlas. It's on YouTube. It's on all the platforms. It's our podcast. And my son, who's much smarter than me, of course he's much better looking than me, otherwise he could never do TV. I have a face for radio, right? That's an old joke, right? That's an old corny joke. He's got a vision. He's, has an energy. He's got a passion for the sport and a knowledge for the sport, my son. So he's taken over the podcast, moving it in a forward direction, an upward direction. He's co-hosting it. And we are doing watch-alongs. We're doing live streaming, I guess, of fights. We did the first one we did a while back. It was more of an event than a real fight, a legitimate fight. It was the Paul Tyson, event. And we did 700,000 views. So you don't have to be a genius. Where my son said that we need to be doing more. People would kind of like to hear your commentary again. I said, really? They would allow me back in that seat? Yeah, I think so. So I appreciate you guys for letting me come back in that seat. And we're going forward with it. We did a couple live streams in the last couple weeks. We did the Keyshawn Davis Baranchik title fight that was broadcast on ESPN. And then the next day we did with the greatest fans in the world over there across the pond. I love you guys. You're probably, I don't know what time it is there, but you're probably having your crumpets and tea right now, right? But all kidding aside, love you guys. Did the Catterall and Barboza fight that was there broadcast to us in the afternoon on Saturday. We did that, and we're gonna, in the future, we're gonna look to do more and more and more of that. As long as the people, the fans out there, the audience out there, tells us to do it by watching. If they don't watch, we won't do it.
I'm sure everybody's going to go on to your YouTube and make sure they subscribe and hit the bell button to make sure they get all the notifications. Teddy Atlas, let's talk about why we're here, though. The last crescendo, Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol in that rematch. Talk to me about this fight. How do you see this fight playing out? A lot of people had the fight mixed views. Some people had it towards Dmitry, some people had it towards Artur in that first fight. Very close fight. But this time around, what do you feel like changes, or if anything does change?
Yeah. Look, I thought it better be if, I'm at odds quite often with the judges. They can destroy this great sport that's been around longer than any other sport. They can destroy it quicker than anything else with the bad judging. And we need to continue to be really vigilant with that, with that. I mean, Turki Alalshikh's doing a really great job of giving new life to the sport, of revigorating the sport that was getting a little stale because there were too many one-sided fights, too many promoters only taking care of their side of, their little piece of real estate, so to speak. You know, their own little kingdom, and then Turki Alalshikh came along, and he's given the fans the fights that we weren't getting, and the sport the fights that they needed to continue to make the sport that's been around longer than any other sport relevant, and because again it was in danger of moving towards a niche cult type sport because it's not complicated. There were too many one-sided fights where it was only one guy was going to win, you know, and it wasn't a fights that people wanted, you know, the best versus the best. And now we're getting that in the last year and a half. You're getting that. So, and this first fight, this is the rematch, as you said. The first fight was one of those fights that the people wanted, you know, a unification fight, like the heavyweight fight with Usyk and Fury, the unification fight that people wanted to see. And I thought Beterbiev, and what brought me into this, what I started with, was the judging was right, which doesn't happen enough in this sport. It's what hurts this sport is when it's not right. It was right. I thought they got it right. You know, I like both guys. I have ultimate respect for both guys, just really. But Beterbiev legitimately, I thought, earned that fight down the stretch in the championship rounds. The rounds that we always, you know, that we like to, we tagged that name, coined that phrase, championship rounds. You know, not we, but obviously it was tagged that way through years by somebody in the sport. And he did it by going to the body, he did it from the beginning, even when he was losing rounds. What do I mean by that? Even though he was losing rounds, he was applying pressure. Pressure has, you know, it brings about certain things. You know, there's consequences to the pressure that you don't see at first. I always said when I was doing all the commentary on ESPN for all those years, I would say it's like putting money in a CD. You put in a bank, and the whole idea is to draw interest, where your money will be worth more money down the road. And that's what pressure does. And body punching. What it does is it gives you the situation where you can earn more money down the road, where you can get the results you want. And what are those results? To tire your opponent, to wear your opponent, to break your opponent, to get your opponent to be more available. You know, to be kind of cooperative. He doesn't want to be cooperative, but the pressure makes him cooperative, where it makes it harder for him to continue to move, to continue to stay free, which is what Bivol was doing early and what he wanted to do late. That pressure paid off. So even though he was losing rounds early on, with Bivol being quick and controlling and owning the space on the outside and doing a marvelous job, beautiful job of showing what the sweet science is all about. Beautiful. It was like a clinic, really. People should watch that. But the pressure was doing something too that no one was saying. The pressure was doing what the flame does to the pot of boiling water on the stove before the water starts boiling. It's evaporating the water. You're just not seeing it. You're not seeing it. The water's there, it's boiling, right? You're not seeing it. But come back 5 minutes later, and the water ain't there. Then you say, oh my God, that's what it did. That's what the flame's job was. That's what the job was of that flame. And that is what the job of body punching merged with pressure is. It's to wear down your opponent. And you saw the results late in that fight. And again, it came forward through even losing rounds. But was he really losing rounds? Yeah, he was losing them on the scorecards. But he wasn't losing them in a way that really matters the most. It was kind of like I think the analogy would fit, that it was kind of like you might be losing a battle, but you're winning the war. And at the end, he did. He won the war. I think what has to be different here in this fight for Bivol to get it his way is not to get worn down to the point late in the fight where he loses those championship rounds. Now, how do you do that? Well, maybe, and I think he's done that. If you look at Bivol, well, he's prepared for that. If you look at him, I looked at him a little bit yesterday in the workout that they had outdoors. I don't know if everyone noticed, but he's gotten bigger. He's added muscle. He's gotten a little bigger. I think he's going to sit down as a puncher. Now, that could work both ways. There can be danger to that. You sit down and you punches more for more power, and in some ways you're thinking you maybe giving up speed or giving up the ability to be elusive, because you got to be elusive too with a guy like Beterbiev. You don't want to stay there too long while you're delivering that punch. But I think that part of the plan that you could see is he's looking to not just throw quick punches, but more impactful, more telling punches to slow the man down a little bit, the man being Beterbiev, where he's not applying that pressure as consistent, as consistent and as effectively as he did the first time. So I think that that's part of the plan, that some of those punches, instead of just quick, beautiful, snappy punches, are going to be more thudding, more impactful, more damaging to slow the man down a little bit, and maybe a little more body punches to give him a little taste of his own medicine to slow Beterbiev down a little bit from applying that pressure, make the flame on the stove a little lower. So I think that's going to be part of the plan for Bivol, and I think it comes down really to one thing. You ever watched the TV show, you're from across the pond, but over in the States, there was a TV show, Gunsmoke, years ago, and, one of the things was the sheriff would tell the gunslingers, you better be out of my town by noon. I would kind of almost set the camp, if I was training Bivol, kind of around that theme of Gunsmoke, where you got to be out of town by noon. What I mean by that is throw your punches, but don't stay there just a little too long. Be out of town by noon. Where it was the 7th round. Only I'm going to tell you, for me it came down to this. I think it was the 7th round, and he was looking like he was controlling the theme of the fight, the pace of the fight, where Bivol was, where he was on his way to, good fight, close fight, but on his way to winning the fight. And he's putting punches together, he's controlling space, he's staying on the outside, he's making it hard for Beterbiev to get where he wants to get close, he's making him earn his way in, and then before he could get in, he's, like I said, he's out of town. And then he was throwing a beautiful combination. Maybe it was 5 punches. He should have made it 4. In the middle of his 5th punch, he stayed one too long. He got a little greedy. He stayed one too long. And with that one, Beterbiev showed why he's so good. He's not just a seek and destroy missile. He's more than that. Yeah, he's a missile, but he's more than that. He's more than just a tough guy. He's more than just a boogeyman. He timed him. He knew that he was getting outspeeded. He was getting outspeeded. He knew he was getting outmaneuvered. He knew he was getting beat to the mark. So what did he do? He waited, and as Bivol was throwing the last punch, the 5th, one too many, bang, he timed him, and he caught him, and he hurt him. And he changed the whole round. He took a round that Bivol was dominating, and he took that round, and he grabbed that round. He stole that round. And then he stole the momentum of the fight. I mean, it's still, Bivol fought back late in spots in the fight. It was magnificent on both sides. But in the end, he stole the rhythm. He changed the momentum that was really flowing in the direction of Bivol. And to me, that's the whole thing. If I'm in the camp, I'm looking at that and saying, this is what you have to avoid. You must do what you were doing, but don't stay there at any spot, at any point, that one punch too many. I'd rather do one punch less than one punch too many. You know that old saying, less is more? I'd rather be out of there a little bit too soon than too late. And I think that, for me, that would be the That would really be the key that I would concentrate on. And look, it can swing both ways, this fight, because I think that Bivol's going to be better. I think he's going to be physically better in the area I just mentioned, right? But I also think he's going to be mentally better, because going into this fight, he didn't know for sure, no matter how much he thought he knew. And he did think he knew, because he's a confident fighter. He was a champion. He was a great amateur. He's a confident and strong mentally. He's all of that. But he didn't know how he was going to handle the boogeyman until he was in there with the boogeyman, as much as he thought he did. And now he's been in there with the boogeyman. Now he has answers to those questions. That's important. The answers to those questions. I always say this business is 75% mental. It is. That is the key part, that he knows now that he can go into the home of the boogeyman and come out alive. And I think that is going to really bode well for him, that information. Now, what's going to bode well for Beterbiev is he's going to be what he always is. He's a relentless son of a gun that is just lives by a certain code of warrior behavior and commitment. And he might be better in this fight. How, Teddy? Oh, physically. Let's not forget that he was coming off a knee surgery in that first fight. And he didn't really have, I don't think, optimal time, maybe, to completely rehab that knee. He's had more time now for that knee to be rehabbed, and for him to do maybe training that he wasn't able to do on a knee that was still compromised going into a little bit. Going into, no excuses, he was at his, 100% bone guy. But maybe, and he's not the kind of guy who would have ever told you, oh yeah, I could have been better. He would never tell you that. My knee was a little off. He would never say that. That's not within his code of conduct, of behavior. But I think that there's a good chance that the extra time now will serve him in that way, which would make him better and make it really, again, another incredible fight and intriguing fight. As we're talking, I'm getting more intrigued, as I'm kind of breaking it down to look forward to. I picked Bivol. I'm always trying to be fully transparent. I picked Bivol the first time, so I was wrong. That happens. Some of you guys across the pond, that happens with me, right? You remind me of it sometimes, and that's part of the reason why I really appreciate you guys, right? For doing that, and love you guys. But the reason I did was, the style, that he maybe could outbox Beterbiev, who doesn't get enough credit for also being a boxer, where, he's an aggressive boxer, but he's technically does things right, keeps his hands up, comes in behind the jab, brings his feet, never out of position, sometimes moves off to the side to look for a different entry point. He does little subtle things that he doesn't get enough credit for, being more than just a caveman with a club. He's much more than that, But I did think Bivol, from the sweet science part of it, would be able to take advantage of, his predictability coming forward, catch him coming in, and again, get out of dodge, get out of town in time not to get caught. And it did play out that way to the point that it did, the rounds he won. And then, of course, Beterbiev, the rounds he won, he was able to get into the geography he needed to, where he could go to the body and slow down Bivol and, start to get his, his way a little bit, especially, like I said, especially down the stretch. I think, as I said, I think that in this, I think again that in this fight, it can be just it'll come out to the same thing. Geography. Who owns the geography that is really, that best serves their skill sets? Beterbiev to get somewhat close and Bivol to be able to live on the outside.